everybody. This is our Board of Education meeting for August 26, 2021. May I entertain a motion to open the meeting, please? Trustee Musafir, second. Trustee Martin, all in favor? Aye. Please join me in standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our Marines, our medic, and the Afghani Americans and Afghan people that were killed today over in the horrific situation going on right now over in Afghanistan. So please, just a moment of silence, and please remember their families and in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you very much. Terrible. So, without any further ado, what I'd like to do is get the meeting really rolling. It's a nice crowd out there today. Thank you all for taking the time out to come down and to be with us this evening. What I'd like to do right now is excitedly throw the meeting over to our illustrious superintendent of schools, Mr. Anthony Carlo. And Anthony will start to introduce his introduction.
Thank you, President Mondo, very much. Thank you very much, President Mondo. As you know, community, and again, I say this all the time, I'm sure you saw it, hopefully you saw it on the spotlight, and we gave an update on the bond. I can't thank you enough for your support. 2 years ago, with our $54 million bond, the work that was started last year under our initial phase in our roofs, suffice it to say that we had a lot of water and rain, and they proved to be very strong, which we're very, very happy about. But now we're looking at the work that was done at the high school. And tonight we have Chris Laubus from Tetra Tech and Lou Rodriguez from Construction Palumbo Group. They're going to give the board and the public a brief update of where we are at. So Chris and Lou, I leave it to you. Thank you both for coming. We're excited about hearing how things are going.
Now, well, what I'll do is while we're waiting for this to come up, just sort of revisit a little bit of what has been going on this summer. We did award contracts in the spring of this year, we've been going through a lot to get contractors moving and situated. The main scope of work is at the high school. We're looking at, of course, the athletic field work, the practice fields. You'll see that synthetic new turf is going to be going in. We're right there. We're right at the point where carpet just came in today, and we're going to be putting down new carpet, very similar to the current main field. So it's the same kind of product, and it's going to really withstand a lot of working between multiple field events. Inside the school, the main points that we're going to be looking at, and we'll talk to them. Main security entrance, as soon as you walk in, you're going to see a little difference there. There's going to be another checkpoint to really heighten security coming into the building. So we'll show some pictures for that. New science classroom renovations. We're going to be talking about all the science classrooms were dated original to the building, so they're all updated to what they are today, today's standards. So we'll have some pictures showing what the science classrooms look like. STEM, we have a new STEM space that's being created. We're also going to be handing that over. We have a new library media suite, which is not going to be handed over until October, but we're in a really good spot with that. It's going to be an amazing space when we hand that over. The music area, as well as being your choral and band area, music storage, that's totally being revamped. That's going to be handed over. We have, what other spaces locker rooms have been renovated. I already talked about STEM, yeah. Yep. So food service, the serving line is going to be revamped, or has been revamped. We're just waiting for equipment to come in. One of the big challenges we've been running into, especially was due to COVID, the construction industry, and I think a lot of people have seen this, material deliveries. You can't get materials, whether it's for something as simple as residential, a residential product, windows for your house, shingles for your house, siding for your house, 2x6s for your exterior wall. You can't get those, but on the commercial side, we've been seeing a very significant situation where major products like custom cabinetry for your science classrooms, fighting for those things, food service equipment, anything steel related, specialty products, we've been running into material delays. But even with that, we are still at a point where we're going to be handing spaces over, even with all that work. So what I want to do tonight is really just talk to where we are with each one of the contractors briefly, show some pictures. Chris is going to be talking about the next phase of work that's going to be happening at all of the elementary schools and here at the middle school, and open it up to the board for any questions.
So Lou, while we're working behind the scenes on technology, I just want to take some time just to really thank the high school custodial staff, all the men and women for the work they've done with you and the contractors. I can tell you, Kevin and Joe, and you do a lot of projects. Kevin and Joe have said this is the best group of custodians that they have worked with in probably their time doing this work at school. So I just want to echo that to the community. Because behind the scenes, in order to get what we're getting back and get our schools ready for next week, is a real tribute to those men and women who are at that high school, who are working hard in conjunction with the Palumbo Group, in conjunction with Tetra Tech, in conjunction with all of our contractors. We are blessed, we say it all the time, but it's really nice when you hear an outside group come in and talk about the first-class operation that goes on. So I know from the bottom of my heart, I know from the Board of Education, we want to take this opportunity before school opens to thank them for the work that's gone on at the high school, but to thank all of our employees, from bus drivers to secretaries to monitors to aides during our ESY programs to our LEAP program. All the success that we had this summer is really a tribute to them and their readiness to get our schools open in the next couple of weeks. So I wanted to take that time just to recognize them. So back to you.
Thank you, Anthony. And I'll echo that. The guys have been amazing, and we really wouldn't be where we are today without their support. Because we've been running double shifts, and they've been right behind us and really helping us through the process. So the presentation is up. Again, just as far as an executive summary, I'm just going to go through how each contractor is doing. I think it's important to talk about that. Your general contractors, Piazza, construction, again, the front vestibule. I'm going to go through just the major scopes of work. Front vestibule, all the framing, sheetrock work has been done. The security drawers are not installed. One of those long lead items. We kept your existing security doors, and we didn't get rid of them because we knew there was a lead time on new ones. So right now we're waiting for those doors to come in, and they should be in before the start of school. And south side main entrance doors are also installed. So when you come in, you're really going to see a special space, and you're going to see a new area where the security is stationed. Kitchen serving, again, we talked about kitchen equipment. The kitchen equipment is scheduled to be here second week of September. We do have a plan in place to still serve the students. Again, what we did, we kept the old serving equipment to really help us, just in case there was a situation we needed it. So we do have a plan in place. All the floor, wall tile, drop ceilings, everything's completed. STEM classrooms, we talked about that. Framing sheetrock is completed, overhead doors. So it's an industrial space, you know. It's really special. All of the work there, epoxy terrazzo flooring is completed. Storefronts are the only thing. Again, doors, that's what we're waiting. And so when you walk into the space, it has a nice vestibule feel when you walk it in, and that's the only thing we're waiting for. Science classrooms, sorry. We're in a good place. We have casework coming in at the end of this week. We're running double shifts to install casework to be ready for the start of school. You keep going.
Lou, if you don't mind, just like as you're doing this, and it's really important, I think, for the community to understand that when we started looking at these spaces, our department chairs, our teachers were involved in creating all of these spaces because we wanted to make sure that they were spaces that made sense for them for teaching, but more importantly for our students to being able to learn. So what you will see in some of these areas is about the back order on furniture. And one of the things the teachers, and to their credit, said is, Mr. DeCarlo, listen, we're going to do this right. We're okay with a couple of months waiting for the furniture that we want to come in, and we'll put some of the old furniture in to start the year. But that's important to note, because when we talk about product, some of the furniture is being back ordered and delayed, not only for production, but believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there's no drivers. We can't get people, they can't get people to drive to bring the product up. So I just want the public to be aware of that. There are some of these areas that will start out with our current furniture, and then as the new furniture arrives, that'll go into those spaces. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great points. I think, like you said, the driver situation has been something we've been dealing with as well. The library is another big area we're working on. It's all rocked. That area was not supposed to be turned over for the start of school. We will be working second shift and completing that area. And it's really come together really nicely. Middle school, we had some work here for a pump room. Part of this project is a new water facility for the project. And we don't really have a lot of pictures of it because what we've done is started to come out of the ground. So there's a foundation. You'll see on the fall side, you get a better picture. You might see that we've cut into the earth. We have retaining wall work. So the three buildings on this campus will be fed by a new water facility. And that's pretty exciting. We're going back and forth with the Department of Health, getting final approvals, but the building's going to be built and completed by the end of the year. And then we're coming back into the buildings next summer to take the existing water pump systems offline. So right now, this building has a water tank that's actually buried in front of the building. That gets taken out, and again, everything's going to be fed from the new building. And then Falls and the high school both have internal water tanks. Those are being demoed and taken out. So, keep moving. So your plumbing contractors, S&L Plumbing, and these guys are really following in parallel with the GC. They're doing a good job. Their main scope of work, if you really think about it, is associated with science classrooms. Your science classrooms, again, very dated, but they have the old chemical piping systems. You'll see some pictures that I'm going to show you in a little bit to show the new chemical piping systems all throughout there to be supporting science rooms. They're working in the kitchen for the new serving areas. And again, they're just working in parallel with the GC, and they're doing a really good job. The mechanical contractor, I know today with COVID, air quality is probably highest on everyone's mind as far as kids coming back to school. The high school is going to have all new HVAC equipment in place. Again, this contractor is working in parallel with the GC, and getting into all the classrooms, but it's pretty exciting. You're going to have all new ventilation in that building at the end of the summer. Fantrol Electric, so the building is also getting new fire alarm systems, PA, panel upgrades. So when you look at the infrastructure of that building, again, very old, everything is being updated in that building to support all of the new mechanical equipment and everything else. So a lot of electrical work is being done, new lighting systems and whatnot. So again, working in parallel with the GC, they're back in. We actually started second shift during the year to get ahead because there was so much electrical work that needed to be done in this building. Asbestos abatement, we did complete asbestos abatement in the high school in all the areas that we worked. We had final clearance. We had already final clearances. All the spaces were cleared. We had some abatement here at the middle school, abatement at Falls, and again, these were strictly the pump rooms where we had some asbestos, and at the bus garage as well. All 100% completed and all cleared. Landscapes Unlimited is a site work contractor. We talked about the practice field, and that's really their main scope of work. So right now we're waiting for all of the carpet to get here, put down the carpet, and that field will be almost done. But right now they're pretty much 100% complete. They will be coming back next summer. So next summer in front of this building, the parking and circulation all get redone at this building, and we also are putting in a new synthetic field on the backside of this building as well. That's all scheduled for next summer. So A-Turf is your carpet manufacturer. They're the same company that people use all throughout local districts. Synthetic carpet was delivered today. We have another delivery coming tomorrow. We're starting the install on Monday. So I want to jump to some pictures before I let Chris talk to the design phase for phase 2. So, okay. So these are just some pictures we took just to give you guys an idea of what's happening. This is the music area. Everything was demoed out to keep consistent floor height. You can see in the back. That's the corridor. This corridor area is actually going to become music storage. So it's really coming along. You can keep scrolling through. And that's more of a finished look. You can see the different areas, heights. This space is also the choral room. So you can see we're just really coming along. And the choral room wasn't supposed to be handed over until the end of October. So we're really ahead of that schedule. This is the new cafeteria serving line. Again, the only thing we're waiting for is equipment. So you'll see, the tile on the walls, actually a new wall separating the space. And right now, what's in there, you'll see stub-ups for the new equipment that's coming in. And this is just another view of the serving line area. And this is just a rendering of the space. And you'll see this is all new equipment that's going into the space, and this is what we're waiting for. And actually, the equipment is available. We just can't get trucked here. This is just a picture of one of the water systems. So before we can take the tank out, it has to be abated. All the pipes and the tank itself had insulation on it. It was removed, so now it's ready for demolition. This is the security entrance that we were talking about. So what we did was created a new vestibule area, a new checkpoint, and a new area for the guard to check people in. And this gives you another view of it. So now it's more finished, and every day it gets further, but you can see the security booth is in blue, the doors, the extra set of doors will be here, and we're going to have a nice Mayapack logo. This is at the high school. Yep. Yeah, it looks really good. Library corridor, if everyone remembers that corridor, this used to actually be the main entry to the library. We cut it at, that was shut, blanked off, windows, glazing. Now you look through, you can actually look through, straight through to the other side, and there's a new entry, and we're working on that. And again, that's not supposed to be turned over right away, but it gives you a good idea of how that's going to look. And this is actually the new entry to the library. Inside the library, there's study pods, which is pretty interesting. So back in this area, it was more circulation. So what's created now is the students can actually go into the library and have their own little work areas if they want to get away and study. There's study pods, and then on the top, there's other study areas. So it's turning out to be a really special space. Science classrooms gives you sort of a feel. You see the cord reels coming from the ceiling for work sessions. All the floors are epoxy flooring, high durability, and you can see the spaces are really coming together really nice. Science corridor, you can see tile on the walls, new ceilings are going in. This is your STEM entry. This is some of the terrazzo work I was talking about coming into the STEM room. These are the STEM spaces, so you can get a pretty good idea. Again, robust flooring in all of these spaces. This gives you an idea too. You can see in this picture here the roll-up doors, so you can actually take the STEM room. There's all of these different spaces. There's a shop area, but you can actually have working areas that are clean. Panel upgrades. Anywhere you go throughout this building, you're going to see all new panel upgrades at the high school. I was talking about the science plumbing replacement. So if you see all these blue pipe, this is special pipe that's rated to handle chemicals. All new in the building. Unit ventilators, we talked about HVAC. We're replacing everything in the building. And you'll see that in classrooms. New exhaust fans on the roof, so we have exhaust fans on the roof. We also have new rooftop units on the roof. This is the high school practice field, so it gives you a good idea of how much space. We actually came into the other practice area here, so it's a big space. We're adding additional parking, so when you do have events or additional sessions out there, it's going to be pretty special, and you're going to see within a week's time it's going to really come together. So that's it. The only other thing I had here was just a simple contract summary for the contractors. I think the board can take some time and look at this, but to simply put all we have today, we still have significant allowances built into the contracts, so we're really in a good position. We have 2 change orders that we've approved, one for S&L Plumbing and one for the electrical contractor. And we're financially, we're really in a great position, even with all of the things that, hurdles that we've been running through with the contractors. We've been able to keep them on point and keep finances in check. So at this point, on a significant volume of work, we only have 50,000 in change orders that have been approved. So it's a great position.
Lou, I just want to intercede there for a second because I think the community needs to understand the work every single day that Mike Shore, our Director of Facilities, is up there making sure it's happening. Sandra Cohesi is there and walking around. And one of the things that I have said, and this board knows this very well, we wanted to make sure that we were on top of everything that was happening with this project. We know what happened about 17 years ago with really difficult times in the project and things not being put in the right way and gyms not being fortified. It was just a mess. One of the reasons behind that is we didn't have a construction manager overseeing project with us. And Lou will tell you, Kevin and Joe, I'm up there every day, I'm walking around, we're at the meetings, we're making sure we're following these things, and I think because of the work of everybody I just mentioned, we are in the situation that we are with the project because of the fact that we're overseeing it, we're working well together. And I think that's very, very important for the community to understand, because ultimately, my responsibility and the board's responsibility is that we do share responsibility to make sure that the project is going along the way it should be going along, that we're monitoring it, that we're looking at it, and that the money that we're spending is being spent wisely and the right things are being done. And I think that's an important piece as we move forward, not only with finishing up the first phase, but when we look at the second phase for next year. So, thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. The last thing I want to just finish up with is safety. First and foremost, we understand that students are coming back. We will continue to be running a second shift, but we do have a zero tolerance policy with the contractors. They are not allowed to, in any fashion or form, talk to students, staff. If they do, they're off the site. All the contractors are required to have ID badges. All communications are through the CM. They cannot be talking to anyone else. And we do have a specific area where contractors are parking. We have it fenced off, and that's where we store materials. So that staging area, logistics area is specific for the contractors. What I don't have mentioned here are COVID protocols. As they come, we do make sure that the first thing we talk about at our weekly job meetings is safety, and any new COVID policies that may come into place or protocols come into place, we will institute those right away when it comes to that. I'll hand it over to, sorry for the long-winded presentation. I'll hand it over to Chris, and he's going to talk about what's coming down the pike as far as the next work that we're going to be doing.
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks, Lou. So, this is a slide that we've seen at a lot of meetings. Those of you who've been at the sort of regular facility meetings. And it's sort of an overview of the $54 million referendum vote. We split it up into three big projects. One we call the early package, which was a bunch of roofing projects that happened at a number of the buildings, and that's done. What Lou was just talking about, we call it phase one. So we're probably more than halfway through that. As Lou said, there's some work to be done next summer on that. And phase two finishes out the larger program of work, and I'll just kind of run through very quickly at a high level the scope of work that is in phase two. And we anticipate getting that to the state very soon. The New York State needs to review the process that we submit that to them and to get the building permits, and then we can proceed with the bid, which we plan to do this winter for the upcoming spring, summer construction season of 2022. So there's a fair amount of work going on in the middle school here. The Library Media Center is getting a renovation, significant renovation. A lot of the library media centers these days are reducing their volume counts, and the method of work and the types of work that's happening in libraries is changing over the years. So, like at the high school, we're adding some spaces where students can do project work, smaller spaces that support that kind of teaching and learning that's happening more and more these days. There is some renovations going on in the STEAM lab that's up on the second floor of the building. Near the back here, there's a classroom that has a couple ancillary spaces that we're renovating to support the STEM program, the Project Lead the Way program that the district is starting to build out, the high school first and then pushing down into the middle school curriculum. The Planetarium, you see that brick wall that's sort of rounded there, that volume goes up through the building, and there used to be a planetarium up there that hasn't been used in a number of years as a planetarium. So the district is going to be using that as a large group instruction space for students to come in. So you can get like a couple classes of kids in. I think about 80 students or so could come in there as sort of a lecture style hall with some tiered seating to make that space work a little harder for what it is, and you need that square footage to be given your school. The cafeteria serving area right here. So right now we've got those 2 lines coming through. So a renovation of that space will reconfigure the serving area and the cooking area a little bit, but generally within the volume in which it currently exists. But to update that so that there's a little bit more variety and they're not duplicating, because right now they're basically doing the same thing twice, one on each side. There are some miscellaneous, just code-related improvements to support, fire egress and ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, so supporting accessibility in the school to bring a few things up to code, to modern codes. Fire alarm system replacement, PA system replacement, some select HVAC replacements, including the chiller that's up on the 2nd floor in the back there, and a few of the rooftop units around that are starting to age out. And then clocks go along with the PA system, clock system replacement, and some electrical panel upgrades. This building was built in the 70s, and they date to that vintage, so there's infrastructure that's wearing out that needs to be replaced. We're also doing work at 4 other buildings, the elementary schools. So a lot of them are very similar scope across the district, so we'll start out with security vestibules. I'll kind of go through school by school. So Austin Road, adding an interior set of vestibule doors, similar to what we have at the building right here that the school district did a couple years ago now, where you come in, you have to check in with the greeter, and then you're allowed access to the school. So we're doing that throughout all these other buildings. Library Media Center upgrade. So at Austin Road, we're reconfiguring the space a bit, in addition to a couple of the spaces behind that main library where they currently have like the kindergarten reading room, and there's a sort of a project room back there. The playground. So the playground scope of work is to improve accessibility to the playgrounds. So we're providing an accessible route to the playground and looking at what elements we can have that will help the accessibility for that playground. At Austin Road, there's that long perimeter fence that we're going to be putting up. I think it's a 4-foot high chain link fence just to keep. I think there's some people that use the trails behind there and sometimes come onto district property just so to control who comes onto district property a little bit better. Again, fire alarm, PA, clock systems, and some electrical panel replacements around that, what we're doing at Austin Road. Fulmer Road, similar stuff, security vestibule, library media center upgrade, again, including a couple of rooms behind that, so to integrate, to create, in all of these, we're looking at where we can provide a room where you can do like sort of STEM light kinds of projects, right? So something that doesn't have carpet on the floor, for example. Hard floor, we can get a little bit messy to support that kind of learning. So we're looking at spaces within all these libraries that can support that. Again, the playground upgrades, just a limited upgrade to support the ADA accessibility, fire alarm, PA system, clocks, electrical panels. We're adding an elevator at Fulmer Road because there is, you can get in at the top level, but that bottom level to get in there, like in a wheelchair, you have to kind of go outside the building and around. So we're adding that elevator to support accessibility. At Lakeview, there's a fair amount of renovation as well. We'll start with the security vestibule over where the entrance is right now. The library media center will stay in the same place, but we get a renovation, so we're going to lose all those ramps and things that are in there right now. Bring that up to a modern level. The nurse office is going to get a good renovation. Again, within the same square footage of where the nurse currently exists, but to get them a modern bathroom that meets accessibility standards and an exam room and some things to bring that up. So student services is a part of the school that has OT, PT, therapists, that sort of collection of folks, and we're doing a renovation of their offices and including a little bit of a larger room where they can do OT, PT activities. That's near the front of the old 1930s section of the building. We're also adding a section that's currently where the girls locker room is. It's not really used as a locker room. So they wanted to use that space to provide some rooms where smaller groups of students that like have an IEP, for example, 5 students with a teacher can have learning spaces that are smaller, speech rooms, things like that. So there's a renovation that will support some more spaces around that. Again, playground EDA upgrades. There are some site walls. There's a lot of stone site walls and concrete block site walls in the parking areas that we're going to do some repairs to. Fire alarm, PA system, clocks, electrical or panel replacements. And the HVAC piece here, in addition to, when we're gutting and renovating the nursing suite, the library, these other areas that I talked about, that includes, lighting and mechanical upgrades to that. But as we were planning out this larger program, we talked about air conditioning throughout the district. We wanted to be sure that each building had a space, one of their large spaces that you could get a lot of kids into that had air conditioning that you could cool down if you had to on a really hot day. So in Lakeview, that was identified to be the cafeteria. Moving to the Falls building, again, security vestibule upgrade. There's a bathroom upgrade. The bathrooms that are right near the front of the building, where we'll be carving out some space to provide a single-use, gender-neutral bathroom right up in front there. Again, similar playground, fire alarm, PA system upgrades, electrical panels, and some piping in the door. So any questions about it? It's a high-level, quick overview, but many of you remember the process that we've been engaged in over a couple years now to plan this work, and the scope is pretty much staying the same as what it was planned to be a few years ago.
Chris, thank you very much. And to the public, this is a really important aspect to see the work that has gone in so far, what is going to happen. As you can see, some of these things have been talked about for the public for years. When we talk about water quality here on this campus, middle school, high school, fall school, pump station, new wells, being able to do the kind of things that are health and safety provided. So you see that, you see health and safety, you see construction, you see learning spaces, you see outside areas, so it's considering it's $54 million, which is a lot of money, there's a lot of stuff that we're able to do with it, and we just want to make sure we continue to keep the momentum going. Chris and Lou will be in for the rest of this year as we get things done and updated. The board about 3 weeks ago did do a walkthrough in specific groups of 3. We'll do that right before school opens so they can see it again. I'll do another spotlight. But we're excited about where we are and what's been done, and we look forward for the work that will be presented over the next couple of months. So again, thank you both for all you do. Sandra and Michael also for your involvement. We appreciate it very much. Board of Education, that's our program and our overview for today, and we thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. DeCarlo. Thank you to Lou and Chris, and again to Mike Shore and to Sandra for following up on this project. It is quite amazing, and I can tell you just from being, Michael and I, 79 graduates, and Lucy was in 85, and Tanner, you were in 2017. So we have a real good, and Ray was, what was that, Ray? 74. So Ray might have built some of these things that are in there right now. So this is an exciting time for not only our community, but really for us on the school board, for people that really know what the spaces look like and how they're coming along. So it's really very exciting, and I couldn't be any happier for this community about what we're getting. So thank you everybody that's making this happen. So we didn't have any comments on any of the agenda items for this evening. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go right to some housekeeping that we have to do as a school board. So we have some motions. So if you want to follow along, what we have is we have the treasurer's report.
Can I actually motion something onto the agenda? I see number 7, ad hoc committees on the agenda. I think it's appropriate, if required, as a special, we put on a motion to discuss committee assignments in general. And I know they were brought up on Tuesday night, at the end of the meeting, to discuss what committees we were thinking about in the unimproved board protocols. And I see that there's a motion for the ad hoc committees. And I know there was 4 other subcommittees on the recommendations, so I think it's only just that we discuss that prior to setting. So that's going to be my motion, to motion a discussion on for all committees prior to number 7. So moved.
Second? Okay, so the motion doesn't go through. So, well, I'm planning on speaking on the ad hoc committee right after the superintendent's report. So what I'd like to do right now is to move along with some housekeeping. We have a treasurer's report for June 2021. Can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report for June 2021? And second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have warrants for June 2021. Motion to accept, please.
So moved.
So moved. Trustee Savino, Vice President Savino, second. Trustee Paluso, all in favor?
Aye.
Extra classroom activity ending June 2021. Motion to accept. Vice President Savino, second, please.
Second.
Ray McDonough, trustee, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Budget transfers for June 2021. Need motion to accept, please? New trustee, Martin. Second. Lucy Masafra, thank you, senior trustee Masafra. All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have reorganizational meeting minutes of July 13, 2021. Motion to accept, please. Trustee Masafra, second.
Second.
Trustee DeLulo, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. And then I'd like to turn it right now to our superintendent of schools, Mr. Anthony DiCarlo, for his superintendent report. Anthony.
Thank you, President Romney. So as the public is aware, I know the Board of Education, we had a work session on Tuesday night. And on Tuesday afternoon, our new Governor Hochul talked about universal masking for public schools K-12 in the state of New York. With that being said, starting on next Monday, that's August 30th, all individuals will wear masks while in the Mahopac Central School District, as well as on buses. We are waiting. She made a comment about further guidance coming out that will be concise and consistent. It looks like regards to testing and vaccinations and what that may look like both for all the employees in the district as well as our students. Where that is and where that's going as of now, we don't know. We've had conversations with our cabinet, with our school physician, and we're waiting to see what that may or may not look like. Because as you know, when you talk about testing protocols, then we have to have conversations about how often is it self-administered, who's paying for it, what's happening. The county has money. There's about $2.1 million worth of money that can be spent on testing, that can be spent on personnel. So we're having a conversation currently, board members with the county. We're looking to possibly get a full-time nurse here that can help us with whatever that testing may be, that can help us with the COVID protocol should we have to do any kind of contact tracing. So that is in the works. Again, we're waiting for the guidance to come out from the governor, and then we'll have to make some adjustments along that way. The governor has been clear about wanting students to be in school 5 days a week. What she has said is based on what we've seen. Kids need to get to schools 5 days a week for that continuity of instruction, for social, emotional readiness to be together, and that's really the most important. Remember last year, one of the things was we want to get our kids to students to kind of be back in school 5 days a week. We'll follow our typical school schedules that we normally do. Parents, I just want to remind you that we know that first couple of weeks, there's glitches that sometimes happen with buses and bus rollings, both dropping students off and picking them up, as well as the flow of traffic. We're going to be having meetings next week with the county sheriff's department to help us with trafficking, as well as the Carmel Police Department, and we'll do that along the way. Our extracurricular activities, our athletic programs are scheduled to proceed in a typical fashion with all the proper safety and health mitigations. And we will continue to follow our COVID protocols with cleaning in regards to contact tracing and reporting. What is really important, especially for the beginning of the school year, board trustees and the public, is that our school buildings will have to be limited to our usage after school hours, meaning the days of schools being open to 9, 10 o'clock at night, we have to be able to get in, we have to clean our rooms and do what needs to be done. However, this is really important for all the organizations. What we're looking to do is at the end of September, once we've gotten established of what our routines are, we're going to call a meeting of all of our outside organizations. That would be our MSA, that would be our Girl Scouts, our Boy Scouts, other groups that use our buildings. We will have a workshop to explain a little bit about what the procedures may have to be with regards to masking, COVID protocols, having specific rosters of kids who are going to be in the buildings. Because what happens is this: when an outside organization comes in, we need to know who's in the buildings, because if somebody happens to be or test positive, the Board of Health is going to ask who were in those rooms in those areas, and we have to make sure that we have that information. So all of these organizations need to have a point person who will be in charge of overlooking their issues and their concerns when it comes to COVID protocols. With that being said, a couple of things that are different from last year. I know, Board, I'm being a little bit redundant, but I think it's important for the community to understand it once again. We are not going to be doing temperature checks when your son and daughters come into school. We're not going to ask you to do that screening every morning, nor are we going to ask our faculty to do that. It's one of the CDC things that they said was not needed anymore. However, every Sunday, early evening, I'll be sending home a reminder. Please make sure that on your own you're checking your son or daughter's health and seeing how they're feeling. We've always known this. If they're running a temperature of 100 degrees or higher, they really need to stay home. And that means please don't fill them up with Dimetapp to come in, and then at 10 o'clock the temperature's running, and then the kids are great out of the mouth of babes. They'll say, yeah, but Mommy and Daddy gave me some PIC medication the night before. It's really important to make sure that we follow that 24-hour fever-free. It also is important if your son or daughter is not feeling well, and you know what those symptoms are for COVID, that they stay home and you monitor them, and then follow up as needed with your doctor. Fully vaccinated persons who may be in close contact of an infected person do not have to quarantine after exposure if they do not have any symptoms. It is recommended, though, if they do have symptoms, that they follow up with their doctor. Okay? So it's also important that if you have any questions or a doubt about the health of your child, always reach out to your child's pediatrician. Staff and students will be encouraged to wash their hands and use hand sanitizers. I talked about staff and students staying home if they're not feeling well. We will have proper PE. We'll have extra masks in our buildings, on our buses if needed, should a child forget about having a mask. Also, what's really important is that we want to continue to do field trips, our extracurricular activities. We want them to return to normal. But what that means, everybody, is the following. We have to make sure that wherever we're going, whatever those guidelines are for wherever that field trip may be, we have to follow what those rules and regulations are. Parents also have to understand that we're doing trips and there's a cost factor to it. There's a deposit. We talk about the 8th grade trip here. We have to be cognizant to that because we don't know what can happen all the time. So we want our kids to have the normal kind of experience they've had in the past, as long as they're masked up and following those specific protocols. On buses, the bus windows will be open, the hatch will be open to make sure that we circulate the air, and we want them to be able to do some of those things that they enjoy doing as a part of extracurricular activities and the like. At the beginning of the school year, there will be a meeting that will take place with each school building, a virtual meeting with your building principal, who will talk to you about the school year and mitigation strategies and what we're going to be doing. At the start of the school year, when we're talking about lunches, there'll be lunches in the elementary school. We'll start like we did last year in the classrooms. We want to make sure that our kids are safe and doing what needs to be done. Should we get some availability to now go back to the cafeterias and do some of the things we normally did, that'll be dependent on where this Delta variant goes. As far as students and quarantining. The County Board of Health will work with our COVID advisor and possibly this new nurse, and then if somebody tests positive, and of course, especially in the elementary schools, of course, the students cannot be vaccinated, it is vitally important that we know where kids are sitting so that whole classes aren't taken out. That's the same thing in our cafeterias, whether that's middle school or high school. When students are sitting, they'll be in assigned area seats so that if somebody tests positive, we're not taking out the whole cafeteria like happened last year. We would just be within that 6-foot radius. So we are trying to work as hard as possible to make sure that we provide the safest atmosphere that we get our students to be in 5 days a week. That's the most important thing that we're looking at doing. I want to make sure that we do that. Lunches, once again, are free for the 21-22 school year, provided by the USDA and the federal government. I will let everybody know, Aramark, and I sent this to the Board of Education a week and a half ago, nationwide there are food shortages going around, and therefore a lot of product that we normally get on a weekly basis may not be available. So whatever we have, we have. And I know sometimes, we've heard from parents last year, it's the same thing, we want to have a variety, and so do we. And I know that Ms. Clohesi has been working with Rob Campisi, and we want to get to that level, but at the beginning of the year, there may be, this is what the lunch is, and there's not a lot of option around it. You still have a right to make your own lunches and have your students bring those lunches in, but if you are going to be participating in those free lunches that are being offered, the selection may not be at the start of the year what it may be like as the year goes on, and once again, that's due to the issues with that. I know that this is going to be a question that's going to be asked, so I will address it right now. Clearly, the governor has stated, and so has the New York State Education Department, that they want students in full-time and learning. There are, and there may be, as we have done in the past, a student who may have a serious medical condition. If that were to be the case, you would contact Dr. Stowell, who is our health service coordinator. He would have a conversation with you. He would then send out, if applicable, a form that has to be filled out. That form then would be sent to our school physician, and then our school physician would have a conversation with your pediatrician and then determine whether or not your son or daughter would qualify for remote learning. With that being said, the goal of all districts, and this is not just about Mahopac, is trying to get back to normal instruction. What normal instruction means, ladies and gentlemen, is teachers being able to work with kids in groups and do things. Okay? Teachers are not going to be sitting in front of the room like they were, having kids in front of them, and then students on remote. If your son or daughter qualifies for a remote option, again, and has some kind of serious medical condition, the school district will be working with you. Each one of these cases is individual, and then from Mr. Trombley's office, we will be explaining to you what that option would look like and who would be specifically behind teaching that option. Many school districts are looking at other BOCES that are offering remote options for the course of the school year, and that is something that I know Mr. Trombley is exploring, and that would be an opportunity that would be available. As far as quarantining goes, because we know, and there's some really misrepresentation out there, and I want to be clear about this. Yes, the masking is going to very, very much limit the amount of quarantine. It does not mean it's going to eliminate it, not at all. And there may be cases along the course of the school year where a student may have to be quarantined. If that would happen, you would be in concert with your school. Your school would talk to you about the hours of instruction, what that would look like with regards to asynchronous and having some work with teachers who will come in and do some tutoring with them so that they can continue to get provided the course that they need to have done. So those are really very important points that I wanted to make sure that I touched on and everybody understands. Our back-to-school nights this year, like they were last year, will be virtual. They'll be on those given nights that are there. And interesting enough, when we looked at the data from last year, we had far more parents coming to virtual nights than regular nights because they could be at a game, they could be at something else, tune in on their phone and see what was happening. So those will be virtual at the beginning of the school year. I think I've touched on most of those specific issues, President Monda. Our sports programs have started this past week. Today, as you know, it was hot out, so we had to stop those programs because of the heat index. And we monitor that very, very closely. As far as mask breaks go, we had a discussion today with our building principals. We had a retreat over the last days. I do not, or will I micromanage mask breaks. That is really up to the individual teacher. It depends on where they're at, what they're doing, what the weather is. But I can let you know we will have mask breaks as needed during the course of the school day. Of course, the students do not have to wear their masks while they're eating. We are encouraging our staff when they can, whether it's a science class, whether it's an art class, whether they're doing a read aloud, for kids to get outside when the weather is nice as much as possible. They'll be going out for recess, and they'll be getting as much fresh air as we can possible. So that's an important piece to what we're saying and what is going on. So that's where we're at. I thank you once again for your patience as we work through this pandemic and, of course, this Delta variant. I do want to mention something before President Monda talks about ad hoc committee. And I know I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago to the board. I've had this conversation with the local Department of Health. I've had this conversation with some parents with regards to we really have to advocate to our federal officials and our state officials. You have to start to guide us on what those numbers are so that we know if we get to a rate that we can go back to optional masking or not. Give you an example. We were told, okay, if we get to a certain level of herd immunity, we're going to be okay. We can do these things. Well, then that changed. The same thing with the positivity rate, right? Last year we heard from the governor, well, we're going to look to do this, and then it never happened, and then we were in a red or an orange zone. Let the public know, and the school districts know, that these are the numbers. This is the plan. That's what the federal government should be doing, because as you know, the federal government, the CDC, are working in unison together. So let the public know if the state or your community gets to this level of vaccinations and this herd immunity, some of these restrictions can be lifted. That's the issue. And to be quite frankly with everybody, everybody's up next year. Okay? Meaning state senators, state assembly, your Congress is all up. These individuals are the ones who can have those conversations. Because I hear what you're saying. I understand it. Okay? Again, but if we don't know what those monikers are and we don't know what those matrices are, it's very difficult. And so I think and I know that this board understands that. Some of the community has mentioned that to me, and that may be, again, at the pleasure of the board, one of the first things that this ad hoc committee does in putting together a resolution to send to those officials to say, you need to do a job in letting us and guiding us as to what these numbers are and not changing the goalposts every other month. That I think is an important piece which will go a long way. So I thank you, President Monda and the board for listening, and that's my superintendent's report for tonight.
Carl, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the work that you're doing with our district and our staff. And it's a monumental task, and we do appreciate you very much. So to dovetail off of our superintendent of schools, so I'm going to read up the. So we have an ad hoc committee that we're putting together. The board of the superintendent will be committed to monitoring federal and state education initiatives and will advocate for policies that are in the best interest of the Mahopac Central School District. This may include developing and maintaining a dialogue with legislators to advocate for district policies as applicable, curriculum changes, testing, fiscal management. The board and superintendent will continue to participate in NISBA, in the NYSWSS, and the Westchester Putnam School Board Association programs related to policy and advocacy. The Board of Education is asking community members to please submit a letter of interest to our district clerk, Melody LaRocca, at larocca.m@mahopac.org by September 15, 2021. What I'd like to do right now is I'd like to thank our superintendent of schools, Mr. DiCarlo, and trustees DeLullo and McCracken, who brought the importance in the forefront of that with advocacy to the school board, to the light of the school board. So, guys, thank you very much. So right now we have a trustee, Vice President Segundo. Would you mind reading?
I got a question. Can I ask questions about what you just read off? Can we discuss it?
Discuss the
Yeah, what you just talked about. Can we discuss it? Can I ask a few questions?
Sure.
Okay. So, first of all, thank you for this, because I think I've been talking about this since I've gotten elected. Superintendent DeCarlo has been constantly talking about it. That's something I've always admired about you, is how you're always being conscious of the other authorities that control what we do and getting the public involved, which has been very important to me. I know Trustee DeLullo has had this idea about making a committee and getting the committee to get involved, so that definitely means a lot. So what you just read off, I understand people would be emailing to get involved. In terms of the actual board trustee members that are on it, is this an item that involves any action at this time? Or so it's going to be established at a later time?
It's going to be established that the 50 when we get the letters of interest in, sit down and decide who's on the ad.
Okay, cool. And going back to what I was trying to raise before, which I thought it was needed a further discussion, but yeah, I think it warrants the same question. In terms of the subcommittees that we discussed in the board protocols on Tuesday night, when will those be officially established?
Those will be up for the next board meeting.
So that's going to be discussed in the next board meeting? Okay, cool. So, and would that be the next regular session or at the special session that we talked about going to the board protocols?
The regular session.
Right. So I personally, I think it would be best to talk about that during a potential special session that we talked about, because I know it was mentioned on Tuesday about having a discussion of the board protocols for next year, being a special session prior to the regular session at the end of September. I think talking about what standing committees we're going to establish and who's going to be on them is important to discuss in that same meeting. So I would like to know what other board trustees think, but I think talking about the committees during that meeting would be better than waiting until the regular session at the end of the month, especially since we were only given this sheet about who's on what potential committees at the end of the night Tuesday. So I think that warrants a full board discussion, especially on what it takes to actually establish these, because that's always been a question for me. So I'd like to know what you think, Mr. President, what other trustees think about having a discussion on what committees we're establishing. Maybe you think that'd be a good idea to do that during the special session.
Well, the ad hoc committee, which is the item that we're speaking about, we're having resumes, letters of interest will be on September 15th. Board protocols is a totally separate thing. The good news is that the nicer part of the president, is able to establish the committees, which is what I was doing. So that's what we'll talk about that at the next board meeting, but not at the special board meeting.
But the board protocols mentions what committees we were looking to put forward this morning. It's on the slide. So I just don't understand why that'd be a separate issue. So the sheet that you handed trustees at the end of Tuesday night, talking about subcommittee assignments, policy, finance, HR, safety, when do those become official? The regular session at the end of September?
Regular session in September.
Okay, and that's going to require board action, board vote?
No, will require board action.
So so what's going to happen at the regular session that would make them official?
Setting the cap. I'm assuming at that point you could set the calendar for the rest of the year, right? I mean, I think that's what we did.
Yes.
I would assume at that point you would be setting the calendar, those committee meetings for the rest of the year to notify the public that the finance committee will meet at this point, policy committee, et cetera, to notify the public and go to I think that's what, if I recall, that's what we did last year. Yeah, so I think that because we're still in the summer period, we haven't started the school year yet, I'm assuming that will be.
The other part of that is that the president does have presidential ability to assign committee members. pursuant to policy. If you remember the conversation, the board protocols of a working document, not finalized, which is the need for discussion. Once it's finalized, then those things will go. Additionally, there was conversations or discussions about some of the committees, which are still being worked out, as discussed at the work session. So once they're finalized, at our next regular meeting, then you'll get it.
That makes sense to me, but I think the biggest problem for me is right now on our policy document, there's 3 different documents that address board committees, and they're all slightly different in their own way. A lot of them say the same themes, but there's temporary subcommittees, then it mentions standing committees, which is not something that the president has full authority over. It says boards establish standing committees, and then ad hoc committees, it says the board establishes ad hoc committees. So for the temporary subcommittees, I think that involves a larger discussion, possibly with legal, on exactly how do we want to establish these temporary subcommittees going forward, because they don't seem that temporary to me. Policy, finance, HR comes up almost every year. And that's why I'm so interested in having this discussion when we discuss board protocols. I'm just trying to make the point that if we're going to do this, I want to know exactly how they're being established. Because you said the power is vested in the president, and it wouldn't take a board action. And then Trustee DeLullo mentioned setting the calendar for the committees. I'm also concerned with who's going to be on what committees. Because as I mentioned to you on the Tuesday work session, I was interested in being in the policy committee. It's something I've been doing for 3 years. It's my job, my full-time professional career, and I'm not on policy, which concerns me. So I think this larger discussion is something that should happen in the special session. If not, I'm looking forward to raising more of my concerns in the September regular session.
Tanner?
Yep.
Let me just explain something to you. Policy is a committee that has to happen. Finance is a committee that has to happen. Okay? Those are the responsibilities of the board. And on top of that, HR has to happen. We have to understand what staff will hire. I don't recall the other.
Safety.
Buildings and grounds and safety. So the privy is of the board president to determine the policies, which those have been standing policies. Those have been committees for many, many years. Those that govern the school districts. The president makes a decision of who is on those committees. Now, this year you may be on one committee, next year you may be on another committee. Everyone doesn't get what they want all the time. That's the reality of it. The president sees fit who he wants to put on the committees. You are the advocacy. You're very good at advocating. Take advantage of that with Ben. There are many things that could be done there. That is something new and introduced in this year. So please let the board do its business and let the committees go forward. There's really not much discussion left to do here. You want to constantly, we need to move the business forward. We need to have the committees, those are the committees that have been identified by the president, and we need to move forward.
I am all for the business moving forward, but this
I
includes
motion
our
to go into
business.
recess
Excuse
for
me.
10 minutes. I motion to go into recess for 10 minutes. I motion to go into recess for 10 minutes.
I had the floor, I
Second.
started speaking,
Second.
and I didn't interrupt you.
And I just motion to go into recess for 10 minutes.
Mr. President, can we take a vote on that motion? Excuse me, objection.
Just needed a second.
So my point of order, I don't believe, and I'd love to see what the district clerk says, if there's a motion to go into recess in a second, I believe that goes to a board vote. I don't think that just carries, especially if,
It's a majority. Okay, so it's a roll call.
yes.
It's a roll call.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question for the district clerk. Can we discuss a motion before we vote on it? Or do we just get forced into a vote?
No, this is not when it goes into recess. Not a motion that goes into recess.
All right, well, I vote no. I don't know why we would go into a recess. We were just trying to have a discussion on committees. I vote no.
I vote yes.
Why is it messy? Says it's not
What I'd like to do
bad.
right now is, once again, I'd like to move on. Thank you for your patience. Move on down to our donation letter.
It
Special Olympics for $750 to be used for unified basketball. Thank you so much.
A motion to accept that donation, please? Vice President Savino, second.
Second.
Trustee McDonough, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have new business. Do we have any questions on new business? This is the MTI commissioning service proposal. What it is it's a, they're going to be providing a commissioning plan. It's going to be on all the operations to make sure that our building is safe, that the building, MSDS sheets and safety plans are all in accordance with the New York State School Association education. So can I have a motion, please, to accept the MTI commissioning service proposal?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee McDonough. Second. Thank you, Trustee Martin. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I get also a motion to accept this evening's consent agenda? A motion to accept, please. Simultaneous. It was Vice President Savino. Second.
Second.
Senior Trustee Masafra. All in favor?
Aye.
What I'd like to do right now is this is something that we hold near and dear to us. It's our resident comment section. What I would like to do right now is turn it over to our district clerk, Ms. Melody LaRocca. Melody has some folks that will be speaking to us this evening. We do have quite a few people that will be speaking, so I would ask you. I mean, listen, I have a night timer. It's 3 minutes. My eggs never come out very good anyway. So, but if you could keep your comments brief and be respectful of the people that will be waiting also, that would be wonderful. But we certainly encourage the participation, and thank you once again for your patience. Melody?
Victor Natsuyama.
Mr. Matsuyama? Okay.
Lisa Savino.
Ms. Savino?
You want me to go up there?
Yes, you could go right up to the mic over there. Thank you. Welcome. There we go.
Good evening, everybody. I attended the last Board of Education meeting on August 12th, and I had asked Mr. DiCarlo questions regarding the option for online learning for children that don't want to be masked, parents that don't want their children to be masked, or children that, for whatever, whether it be a health condition or a psychological reason, cannot wear masks. And Mr. DiCarlo, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you told me the only way that I would be able to have that option for my son was that I needed to know from my pediatrician. Now, this evening when you mentioned it, it seems like it's a far more involved process. Now, can you please just clarify, because a whole bunch of parents
Yes, I
have
can
questions
clarify.
on
So
that.
in concert with our school physician and with our legal counsel, as I mentioned before, any requests go to Dr. Stowell, who is the health service. He will send out a form that would have to be filled out by your pediatrician, talking about the diagnosis, how long your child has been involved with whatever the medical condition is. Then our doctor would speak to your doctor, and then the determination would be made on whether or not your child qualifies for remote learning.
Well, I think that's kind of unfair, because maybe my child hasn't had this condition for a long period of time, because masks are fairly new. And my pediatrician, I already spoke to her, and she also wanted to let me know that whatever she puts in the note goes on his permanent medical record. So if my child is all of a sudden labeled with anxiety, that would go on his permanent medical record, and that would follow them later on in life. And to me, I don't think that that's fair, or just, or right to ask parents to do that to their children. So I'd like to know if you could address that, please.
Again, as I explained clearly, It is an individual, each child is individual. You would speak with Dr. Stolo, Dr. Stolo would send you the form, your doctor would fill out the form, our school physician would take a look at it and then make that recommendation. If it's warranted and our physician thinks it is, then Dr. Stolo would have a conversation, you can have a conversation with Mr. Tremblay, our assistant superintendent for curriculum, and then your child would be placed appropriately.
So is not masking an option?
No.
So
His have to be masked in
regardless of
school.
the child's condition,
See,
they
that's not what I said. Clearly, I'm not a medical doctor. I don't profess to be. I've said that and reiterated that over and over again. Mrs. Sabino, if your doctor has a diagnosis and the reasoning why, they would fill out the form, fill out whatever questions there are, send it to our doctor, Dr. Casaro. He would take a look at it and then make that determination.
So the determination isn't made by my pediatrician?
No,
It's
it's
made
our
by
school.
your doctor?
Correct, correct.
Correct. And if the doctor declines, if it's declined, then what? I have to pull my child from school?
You can homeschool your child. I mean, you know, that's the protocols that are being followed. Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Sabino. Melanie?
Melissa Reardon.
Hello, good evening. I just want to say you had a wonderful presentation of the things that are coming okay, actually males under the age of 40, okay, who had they had a higher risk in males 12 to 17 with all of those heart conditions, okay? And this is an exact line from the FDA. Information is not yet available about potential long-term health outcomes. If we give in to all of this stupid mask mandates, we give in, then we're going to give in to the vaccine, and we're just going to keep giving in. And that is going to be what America is going to be about. It's going to be about giving in. And I was at a rally yesterday down in City Hall fighting for my job. Okay? Not just me. I'm fighting for the kids who are going to soon to be mandated to get vaccinated, because we are allowing them to be masked. It doesn't make sense. Don't tell me there's science. There is no science to prove that these masks work. Okay? You know it doesn't work. If I could go sit in a restaurant unmasked, the kids are hanging out in town in closed spaces, unmasked together. And people say, oh no, but they're outdoors. No, they're indoors. They're indoors. They're having sleepovers. They're having sleepovers. Not by one or two kids. They're having group sleepovers. Okay? It is BS. Okay? The science that the media is trying to put towards for us to look at, it's BS. Sorry for my language, but it's really frustrating. It is frustrating that my child has to sit masked up, and it's not fair. There is no freedom. And you guys better wake up as a school district and stop saying you're following the science, because you're not.
Be leaders.
You're not following the science. They are sitting in groups, and they go, you go to a restaurant, I go to a restaurant, wake up. You're going to tell me COVID doesn't come there? You're going to tell me COVID just picks a school? COVID only picks schools? That's where COVID survives? I mean, we gotta wake up. This place should have been packed with thousands of freaking parents already.
That's right.
They should have been packed. We shouldn't have had a space to stand. It is tiring. And our kids are suffering. And it's not fair to hear that a parent has to label her kid with anxiety to get excused from not wearing a mask. I have to find how I'm going to survive, because as of September 27th, I don't have a job. And that's what's going to start happening to other people in here, and then these kids are going to get vaccinated, and we don't know. We don't know what the outcomes are. And if we give into these masks, we're going to give into the vaccines. It has to stop. It really has to stop. I mean, there has to be some type of people. This place, how many people are in the schools here? And this is what's here? I hear all the complaints on Facebook about it, and this is all that's here?
That's why they're getting away with it.
It's too much. It has to stop.
Thank you.
Piggybacking off of that emotional statement, clearly I'm not masked right now, but that's okay to do that at the microphone. As this poor mom just illustrated, it's okay in certain instances, not in other instances. The reason I wanted to come up here and speak tonight, obviously my massive concern is also the masking and what it's going to do to my children. My youngest one, well, my middle one is here, and she would be going to kindergarten this semester, but I don't think that's going to be my children going to school and breathing in carbon dioxide all day and not seeing anyone's face, not seeing anyone's smile, being disconnected from people. I don't even know what they're going to be taught. And then the question was brought up, said Dr. Wilson, well, what is the work? What is going to be taught? And Mr. DeCarlo, he cut her off and didn't even let her answer. So that's still mystifying. So, you know, it's like people are frustrated here, and the frustration just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting, because you know what? Nobody's getting any answers. We started this meeting off tonight, everyone's sitting here with the same concerns. And I'm sorry, while it's a beautiful presentation about what's going to be done into the school, I don't think these parents really care if the labor is not going to get delivered. Read the room. People are looking at their phones. This is the most electric and alive and focused they've been in an hour and change. Read the room. Read the people that you're supposed to be serving, because you're not doing it. Because if you were doing it, you'll be quiet and happy and not getting emotional and not getting frustrated. I'm here with my wife and our children to show my children that you have to stand up for what you believe in. And I'm sitting here and they're masked and they're breathing this nonsense and I'm sweating. And then you guys have a public hissy fit and we all have to wait even longer. You guys should have opened up with the business at hand. This is the business. I know there's other things that are going on, and yes, the school needs to be taken care of, and the facilities need to be kept up, but Jesus, read the room, okay? We're sitting here listening to the droning on and on and on, and trying to keep my kids quiet. Get to the points at hand. Get to the stuff that people care about, okay? Because if you don't, you won't be in your positions. You serve us. Respectfully, you serve us. So, start. What is Ms. Wilson going to be teaching my children? Or Dr. Wilson, pardon me, going to be teaching my children? Do any of you know? Can any of you give me an answer besides saying the work? Because I am really not interested in the work as an answer. What exactly will my child be taught if and when I decide to send them to this school?
So to your, I'm sorry, I get deeper on this. To your question, nothing has been determined yet. We're just, as she mentioned, in the initial phase.
Right.
There is,
and excuse me, but that's how it starts. We're in the initial phase, and then all of a sudden,
but
we're on board with
can I
it.
finish answering your question? So at the end of the day, these, well, 9 are all here. They will approve whatever curriculum comes out of those discussions on diversity and equity in education, right? I clearly had said to her, the board first has to have a discussion to understand what the state policy and guidelines are on what has to be within that curriculum when we're looking at it. So we're nowhere near. And as she mentioned, it's almost a 2-year process. I encourage you, if you want to be a part of that committee, to look to see what will be in it after we go through all these discussions. That would be a great thing. We are nowhere even near a curriculum and what's going to happen, whether it's kindergarten, 5th grade, 12th grade. We're just beginning to do that work.
Okay, that's great, and I appreciate that. I am going to look into it. But what would have been really helpful is if you just would have let Dr. Wilson answer the question. Because we would have had some idea.
But I think she
Hold on,
did.
I'll let you finish. Now you let me finish. We
Yes.
would have had some idea of what she was going to be teaching. Just a fraction of the idea. But you were so worried about jumping in front of it and make sure it's not CRT, which you wouldn't even say the letters. It's not CRT, it's letting her speak. Let's get it from the horse's mouth so there's no confusion. So us parents sitting at home watching this thing, when we finally get to the question session, we don't learn anything. It's just a wasted effort.
And that's your opinion. I respect that. I don't think
Well,
it was a waste.
that's my opinion, but it's also the fact. It's actually what happened.
No, but I want to go back to clearly what she had said. She said, because one of the board members asked about how long this process would take. And she said it's approximately 2 years before you even get to something. And then the discussion was brought up about the fact of, and I was clear about it, because I answered the question, and I probably got passionate about it. We will not be, nor will I ever, have a curriculum that tells our kids that they're racist because of the color of their skin. That's not what this is ever going to be about. When we're talking about diversity and equity in education, there's a variety of different things that go into it. A lot of it really is based on civics. And I can speak when I was in school, and probably some of you. how do we go back and talk about, looking at social media and navigating information and coming up with your own opinion and defending your own opinion. That's a lot of what you're going to see in this as we get through it. But nothing, sir, has ever or even been entertained. It's just the initial discussion. To the point of the board, they had said we want to gain a clearer understanding, and Dr. Wilson said, and that was my comment, before we can do any of that work in curriculum, the board needs to grasp what this whole two-year process is going to look like.
And what if you grasp it and we don't agree, then what?
Well,
You
because,
can
but
start anyway.
there will be people on those committees that will have a say in what will go in ultimately to that. That's what she was saying. She's going to be listening to and having discussions and surveys with the public, with the board, with teachers. And she clearly said it will be modeled after, we're not cookie cutter. We model it to what the needs of your community and district are, right? And so what we hear out on social media, and especially in other places, is that, that's not, nobody's involved. There's going to be this canned curriculum, and we're going to be having forced down our throat. I'm sorry. Absolutely not. That's not what this is about at all. And I encourage you and others who may want to get on it, just like we're doing with the ad hoc, that you can say, listen, I'm interested in being on the committee, looking at, the DEI work, and that's where this comes together. It's going to be a combination of groups of people, educators, parents, board, that will come up with what this looks like K-12.
Okay, well, you say that now, and it sounds good on paper, but you're saying that you're going to do everything in the best interest of the students and the parents, yet here are the parents talking about something that's in their best interest, and we're meant to stand.
But it's again, your opinion is your opinion, and you're entitled to that, but as far as I'm concerned, it's two separate pieces.
No, it's the same.
That's you, again.
Fundamentally, it's the same thing. Speaking up for what you believe in. So in 2 years, are we going to be at this point where we're now struggling to gain ground against this thing that's going on?
So the other night when the presentation was going on, Dr. Wilson did a presentation. I myself did not really understand what the scope was.
Right, you asked the question.
So my response was, I felt this was beyond reading, writing, math, science, history, etc. And I felt anything has to have parent line. I want to see a demo. I want to know exactly what will and how will whatever be taught. So that's my position. Nothing will pass me that does not happen. So I will be
Okay, fair enough. I just want to make sure that in 2 years, I'm not here fighting the same type of fight with a different topic. That's all.
And I do encourage you, sir, to get involved, because I think that would be great. Because it will be important. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie? Chris? Thanks, Chris. Thank you. That's a problem,
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. I'm not going to touch on a few things that people have talked about already, but the committee idea sounds like a great idea to get parents involved. Obviously, a lot of people are upset about masks and things like that, and I'm sure there'll be something else down the road that is going to be a contentious issue. So thank you for bringing that up, and I will definitely be getting involved in that. For us taking these masks off and things like that, having kids wear them obviously is different than wearing them all day. All right, you take them off, we're not stuck wearing them all day. But I share the same frustrations. We're into a third school year that this is affecting our students. 3 school years. That's almost a quarter of their education, right? That's a long time. I know for older people like us, 3 years can go by like that. But for kids, 2nd to 5th grade, that's a huge amount of time. And the frustration that we have is Albany issues their guidelines, Albany issues their mandates. Great. What is Mayapack doing to protect our children? All right? This is clearly theater. For us, these masks are theater, okay? They're not doing what we think they're doing. And studies have shown that, and I'm not going to get into stats or anything like that, but it is backed by science. And for children to wear it all day, totally different than us wearing it all day. And so we just want to know, how much longer is it going to go on before we say, all right, Albany, we see what you're saying, but
this is really negatively affecting our children. And when is that gonna happen? When is one teacher gonna, is there a Mayapack school teacher here? You know, when is one teacher gonna stand up and stand with us, or the board? And you guys sent that letter back in June to Albany. That was awesome, you know, telling them that we hear you, but we want local control. That's what we want as parents. I don't know, like, what point it needs to get to. Like, 4 years? 5 years? Like, what point does it need to get to where we say, enough is enough? All right? And that's what frustrates us. There's not one single teacher out there that's frustrated. There's not one single person on the board that's willing to stand up, or one teacher to stand up. That's really frustrating. And to mask a 6-year-old to 17, this one-size-fits-all approach for the whole state is terrible. It's just terrible. There's no way around it. You have different needs in different counties, and you're just saying, slap a mask on. This is March 2020 type intervention. Just put a mask on. You have elementary school kids that are in the same class all day. We gotta work something out. We need to work on something. We need to bring that advocacy group to Albany and get it out of this community and into Albany. And also, I don't know if anyone else is gonna touch upon it, but the Putnam Department of Health is making a lot of decisions that are affecting this community, and they have been for 18 months. I would respectfully request somebody from the Putnam County Department of Health to show up at one of these meetings and to explain to us and walk us down.
I can, Mr. Harrigan, I can invite them. I think one of the other things that they may want to do, and this is again up to the board, is to ask all our elected officials to come to a workshop one night, meaning our state and federal officials, and have a conversation with them. Because I think that may go a long way, and let's see who shows up and doesn't show up. So I think I can reach out and try to do both. I'll do it both. Melanie will know that. We'll do it both in a formal letter. We'll do it in an email, and we'll do it in a phone call, and maybe in September we can get them in here and have that conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what is needed. And you mentioned that workshop idea. I love that idea. If you're going to meet with the outside, if it's all possible, could we invite some other people? It's very frustrating as a community member to try to reach out to the Department of Health and the school. And I understand there's a lot of different things moving, but it's been 18 months. There's what, 6 school districts in Putnam? This isn't a heavy lift for the Putnam Department of Health. They should be able to handle this. And the last thing I'm going to end on is, Mr. DiCarlo had said, we need the same thing similarly. We need a metric. Otherwise, these are going to be on forever. And we need a metric. If we can take them off because numbers are low and put them on, we need to know that as a community. And I'm not putting that on you, I'm putting that on
No, you can put it on me. And I think you bring up a great point. I'm listening, okay? I'm fighting. Believe me, I am, to the best of my ability. I am. And you're hearing what I'm saying. To your point, that's where the elected officials, you have to put them on the spot, right? You have to say, you got to help us on a federal level and a state level come up with something, because to your point, right? If we don't have that and we don't know about it, when is this ever going to end? And so, and I mentioned this a couple of times, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a doctor. I wish I could tell you what the number is. I can't. But if we can work with them and try to do that, that may help along the way. So, and I know you and I had that conversation, so it's not something, Mr. Harrigan, that I'm just bringing up tonight. So I thank you.
I think that's a fight that's ongoing with that, and Mr. DiCarlo is pushing for that, and that's also part of the advocacy, as a group, to bring that forward. So yes, your voices are heard by us, but as a group, collectively, can push that forward up the chain, like you're looking at.
Yeah, I think you might have a little more weight than, I've reached out to local politicians before, a group of 50 or 60 of us, and we're not really getting much headway with that. So if it comes from the school, it can carry a little weight.
But, and again, and I think it's the way that you craft the letter, and I have to be very careful, because, you know, I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt us as a district, but I think it's important that you just mentioned, they're the elected officials who can make the most impact, right? And so it's important that we reach out to them and ask them for those conversations. And, you know, on my sidebar conversations with them, and I'm being honest, this is going to be aired, it's in public, they're all up. You know, we talk about accountability. right? We talk about accountability. They're the ones who can make the difference. And they're all up for election next year. So now's the time to have those conversations and see where they go. So it's an important piece.
Can I just ask a quick question? It's not a statement. Literally a quick
Just
question.
one other thing, I agree with her 100%, there should be 1,000 people attending tonight.
Yeah, that's right, I know.
And when those politicians come here, there should be 5,000 people.
Yeah.
Because that, you are the people, we are the people that vote the vote machines and put these people, that dignity groups and say, we gotta wear masks and this. We are locked in right now. And we're fighting for you every day. We're all with you, believe it or not. We are on the same page as you guys. We are 100% on the same page. We gotta get through politicians to make any changes. And if they get here, we gotta have the vote is here. Full house.
Mr. DiCarlo, why, this is just a question, not a statement. My daughter did the LEAP program this summer, and then all of a sudden halfway through the program, there was no mask required on school property. It was great.
Because that was the guidance that happened with the CDC that New York State adopted as a kid. And that's the, and you bring up a great point. That's the frustration. That's the frustration. You're 100%. That's the frustration. That's the frustration.
That's why it's so important to get this metric and get this ad hoc. Our numbers are good. We should.
And it should be our zip code. See, here's the issue, right? Because what happens is that they look at the county, and if you look at the county, you can have an outbreak in one area, but it's not in the whole pack. That's one of the things that they should be able to dig down and look at the zip code for the kids that go to the Mayapack schools. And that's the positivity rate for us. And you gotta get that baseline number so we know. Now, here becomes the catch-22, right? They can turn around and say, okay, Mr. DiCarlo, but in order to do that, we gotta test your kids, right? And so that's what you gotta be careful of. Like, there's always that yin and the yang, right? Well, you want that baseline number. That means you gotta test the kids, and of course, I can't force your kids to be tested. You would have to give consent to it. So we always gotta keep these kind of things in the back of our mind, because that's sometimes what winds up happening. You try to get one thing done, and then you got another issue coming the other way. But I think that's where those conversations.
So you're saying that the mask mandates are coming from the elected officials, not the school board, right now?
Yeah. It's not us.
So it's that the Mary lady who hides under the rock? The Mary Ellen lady that you can't find anywhere, her?
It's the governor.
But what would happen, to your point, when we invite the county to come in, we would invite her and of course Dr. Neshalak, who's the health director. Whether they come or not, I can't answer that, but we can have that conversation with them. It's going to be interesting because the governor claims this week, I don't know whether it's tomorrow or Friday or beginning of next week, she's going to come out with some further guidance because she wants to make things concise and consistent. What that means with testing or not, I really don't know, but we'll see. But thank you again.
But as of the 24th, there was not a mask mandate for New York State. She said because we're not in
her comment, universal masking, she said, is going to be part of what's going on.
She's saying she's going to be, but as of right now, as of today, she did not say it is.
Well, part of the problem is that we no longer have any guidance from the DOH. Okay? So, and that's the other issue, right? New York State decided to advocate it, and they haven't given us guidance. I think she's working with Dr. Zucker, and that's why I think you're going to see something come out with more of these whole different areas and social distancing and all that. So, we'll see where it goes. It could be in flux, to your point. You're right. Because just like the previous governor, the statement is made, and then, weeks later we get an executive order. Right now, that's where I think the issue is up in Albany, is that, she's having some of those conversations with, I guess, the assembly and the state leader, and to see whether or not she gets executive orders or not. So I don't know that piece. We'll invite them all in and we'll have those discussions.
Thank you. Melody, who's up next?
Kathleen Messina.
Ms. Messina? Thank you.
wearing of masks has become a political issue, not a health issue. There has not been a scientific study and analysis to prove masks work. It appears the Board of Education has its own agenda, together with other boards across the country. They all sound alike, and they don't listen to parents. They are rude sometimes, arrogant, and disrespectful. Common sense tells us that children wearing a mask, covering their nose and mouth all day long is not good. Masks restrict oxygen. The child can't breathe normally. The mask they wear all day long becomes dirty. Little hands touch the mask after being contaminated by touching various objects, and then they touch the mask over and over again. There has never been a scientific study, an analysis of data to prove that masks work. Masks are an impediment to learning. Why would the board mandate masks when they are an impediment to learning? Children are struggling to breathe. They can't see well. The mask blocks their vision, and they have trouble focusing in their eyes. If they wear glasses, they struggle with their classes, fogging up. They are distracted until the fog splits. In teaching reading, hearing is crucial. Sound is muffled when teachers and students wear masks. The child also needs to see how the teacher forms words and projects sounds. Teaching reading is severely handicapped when teachers and students wear masks. There is a comprehension problem. Remote teaching students in any form is impossible. It cannot be done. They are lying to you when they say children will be on grade level after this experiment fails. The school closures promoted by the teachers union have placed our students in 2 or more years below grade level. The closures affected the child's memory with regard to what was previously learned. That material has to be reviewed and reinforced before introducing new information. Now we have an impossible situation to overcome. This is child abuse on a grand order. The only thing we hired you to do was teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. You have failed miserably. The United States ranks 35 worldwide in reading and math. Who is responsible for that? The public school system. This school system has a record of not being able to teach reading and simple math for the last 55 years. Some parents have experienced the words that their child doesn't get and need special help in learning the stable classes. They will tell us how many students are sent into those classes and what is the ratio to the total amount of students in our schools. Those classes have a special budget that far exceeds the regular school budget per child. Could this be dyspepsia? Sunation. We don't work for the Board of Education, the superintendent, administrators, and teachers. They work for us, the taxpayers. There are serious-minded, dedicated teachers who excel in the classroom in our school system. I am not referring to them. I have a 55-year experience dealing personally and professionally in Mayapack schools. With regard to trust, don't trust these people with your children. They are untrustworthy. Speak up and fight back because your child's future is at risk. Finally, take your child, find a way to take back your school tax
today, because we have transition, I'll just be those kids that are on the bus. That's the way it's going to be done.
Okay, so my child is at interest by role, and any opportunity to be classmates, I'm sure. A trial run can make the first day jitters a bit less. I also live in a bad corner. I think for cars to be backing up, while waiting for us to try to get him on the bus. I kind of fear that COVID has made the world very complacent and, to be quite frank, lazy. So many things are being said no to just because I feel like it's the easy way out. No, we're not going to do this because of COVID. I'm a local realtor. Unfortunately, a lot of my clientele, I have to turn away from Mayapack as they can't afford the school taxes. Instead, I direct them to our neighboring Westchester towns. I am not here to argue the absurd taxes, but rather asking you to justify them. You are all responsible to put the interests of our children first. So if a simple 15-minute bus ride would smile on our children's faces, ease parents' minds, and help make kids' first day a bit easier, then it's something you have to do. Please don't take the easy way out. I blame COVID, when buses are going to be running full force a week later. I just don't see what the difference is in not doing orientation. I know you guys kind of briefly spoke about the cafeteria usage, but I do have concern over the social distancing guidelines and the possibility of cafeterias being closed. I work very hard. If I don't get up from my desk, go to a different room, get a fresh breath of air, communicate with others in a non-structured manner, at some point during my day, the tension level is at an all-time high. No one here can say that sometimes a change of scenery can help you regroup and then have better focus for the remainder of the day. I think we can all agree on that. I believe a lunch break taking place outside the classroom is critical. It's critical for our children's minds, their focus, and their stress level.
Definitely. And so what we're doing, just so I don't lose that train of thought, if it's okay with you, we're going to have tents and have kids be able to be outside when the weather is nice. So we're looking, yeah, outdoors. Yeah.
And on the winter months,
Well, on the winter months, depending, I mean, if you get a nice day, whatever you can, but on the winter months, we'll look, hopefully, right? You know, we actually had a meeting today with Ms. Coletti. We're hoping, as those numbers come down, to start to lean them back in. At the schools, we're looking at, because we have the benches, that we'll be maybe able to get the kids that way. So, you know, we're looking at all options, but when we can get them different,
I'm sorry, is this your confirmation that cafeterias are closed?
it depends. It's not here. They're not closed in the middle school and the high school, but the elementary schools, because of the flow and the need to use them for gym classes, because of that social distancing, that also plays a factor.
Shame.
Right? Because you can't have 48 kids in a small, you know, in a small to average sized gym, so to begin with.
Perhaps do a one-day, when we're in the gym, you have one class, you have, I don't know, it would take more than that.
Yeah, but we're looking, to your point, we are looking at options. Yeah, I'm looking at, and back to your first point, I will have a conversation with our transportation department to see what I'm going to be able to do. You're welcome.
Yeah, can I just ask you, please do the right thing and keep our children's interests in mind. Don't let this chain reaction of complacency take away the experiences from our children. Don't let COVID be the easy way out. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think to your point, as you heard what I said the other night and tonight, you know, that's why we want to do the field trips. That's why we want to do that. We're trying to do things to the best of our ability to make it somewhat routine like it is. So I don't want you to think, you know, and I think what's really important is that we're able to have this dialogue, and so in that conversation back and forth, it's important because there are some things that we are trying to do to make it as normal as possible.
We could really try to push for a bus ride. I know there's a lot of.
Ma'am, I will do that first thing tomorrow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gurlov, excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you push for all three elementary schools?
No, we did. And so to that point, to Mrs. Messina, because I think it's only fair, we had in this board adopted a strategic roadmap 4 years ago. Because I heard a lot of the same things that you were hearing about reading, writing, and math. And you knew what schools kids came from because they had certain teachers that gravitated to this. We do across the board now with our workshop model, you know, Columbia Teachers College. It's uniform. It's K to 5, doesn't matter what school you're in and what's going on. So whether you're at Fulmer in your second grade or at Lakeview or whatever, all the kids are doing the same things in the same manner. So I hear you, and it's one of the things that we are trying to do across our district. Shouldn't matter where you live and what you do, and all these kids are getting that same type of quality instruction across the board. And we spend a lot of money on professional learning, so to your point, thank you.
Just kindergarten orientation, I had another question. Is it across the board that parents aren't allowed in the
That's
school?
correct.
Okay. Was that always like that, or is it because of COVID, they don't want people in the class?
It's been the last couple of years because of COVID, yeah.
Okay.
Question, why were the middle school parents allowed to come to orientation?
To my knowledge, the letter went out, it was just the kids that came in. I don't remember seeing any middle school people that were in the building. I think Mr. Cosapia sent the letter out. There might have been a volunteer to help out with something, there were not a vast majority of parents.
So I was here, Monday or Tuesday, I'm sorry, I remember. My daughter goes, she's going to 6th grade, and all the parents, they were allowed to come in. One child, one parent. So we all cruise around,
So I misunderstood, I think she had said parents, I didn't hear what you had said.
No, I asked why were middle school parents allowed to come to the orientation, and I can't go with my 4-year-old son next week to his kindergarten.
Yeah, we have to stay in the parking lot.
We have to stay in the parking lot.
Ask questions to the
And
administrators.
I just don't understand that.
Okay,
Kindergartner.
I will follow up.
Because we were there at screening.
Right?
Yeah, they let us in at
Yeah, we were there
screening.
for
Okay.
screening. What's the difference, 2 weeks, 3 weeks
I'll
later?
follow up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. A lot's changed in the last week when it came to
Yeah.
kindergartners. And the bus run was one.
Yep.
The orientation is another one. There's a few that just changed again out of nowhere. Again, transparency is what we want, not just a note saying no. Thank you.
Thank you.
A, balance.
I'm not sure.
That's it, that's signed up.
I just want to read something real quick, just to on board that we get. It said, on her first, and this is Governor Hochul, on her first day as governor, Kathy Hochul announced that her priority number 1 is to ensure children are safe in school, including immediately directing the Department of Health to institute universal masks entering our schools. Now, that was introduced, I guess, to the Department of Health. Whether they made a move now, Anthony, have they gave us any direction on that yet?
As I said, they are working with her on not just that, they're looking at other issues also.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee.
I just want everyone to know that the board, us, we don't institute mask mandating. Fortunately, we do have to follow the guidelines, and that's why we really worked hard to create this advocacy group, because these are the things that we need to advocate for our children. Myself, I truly understand and sympathize with every mother in the district of how hard it is for children to wear masks. I do understand that, but there are safety protocols that you have to follow, so it's like that balancing act of what you follow and how the children and the parents, what we need to do. So it's difficult times, everyone's been patient, and hopefully we can get to the point where, as Superintendent has said, if our numbers go down, hopefully when children are at least at the desk, maybe remove a mask, then we come up with some protocol.
But it doesn't make sense. That's the whole bottom line
I
of
know.
everything. It doesn't make sense. You can
So
sit
why
in
do
a
you have to follow the
lunchroom.
guidelines?
You can sit in a lunchroom with no mask on. It doesn't make sense. It almost sounds like we're stupid. Right? I mean, like, let's take it off in the lunchroom. COVID's not there. I've touched this mask about 100 times since I've been here. Moving it, this, and all of that. It's filthy. This mask is filthy already. It's filthy already. It has all the germs, but I'm just saying, if we was following the safety protocols, it's stupid. They're sitting in a lunchroom unmasked, but in a classroom, they have to sit masked. It doesn't make sense. Common sense. This is just common sense. Forget about science.
And to bounce
I mean, it's
off
just
of
common
what
sense.
President Sanders said about the advocacy committee, something else that's really important is you're taking a really strong first step by coming here. It's about directing your energy, getting your opinion. But I think in general, a lot of things with the policies at Albany, information is the number one thing that we need. And a lot of times, because of partisan interest in the way everything is polarized with our government right now, you hear information from one end and then you get information from the other end. Something else I'm looking forward to working on the advocacy committee is just getting the right information and then using the collective energy to advocate for what we want. So I think that brings up a good point about there's just a lot of confusion, even for our chief executive to operate. So there's a statement made during the speech, and we don't even know how the Department of Health is going to implement it. It's that type of confusion that I think we can also address with that committee. So we're going to definitely use the energy we have and put your voices together, no matter where you stand, even if you agree or disagree, you get all your opinions together, you can become a strong school district. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Steve, I just actually really had another quick question, just for the parents here. I'm a mom in the district. I have 4 kids spanning from high school now to Lakeview. I don't want to harp anymore on the whole mask discussion. Again, I feel that my kids, it's going to be a big adjustment to having a mask on all summer. That's not my point of asking the question. And this is just how, and I know there's no option for remote learning, and I don't want that. I want my kids in school and pick our battles, and I'm not fighting with the board on this. We need to support them and fight at a higher level to get people in here that are going to change the decisions for the mask. It's not the people sitting at the table right there. I can tell you that. But on top of this, and this is my concern, is, I had something happen at the end of last school year impacted my 2 older children related to contact tracing. So I went and got my kids vaccinated. I bit the bullet. Now I'm like, okay, they're good. I was hoping they didn't have to wear a mask, but yeah, now they do. My point is that I have 2 others under the age of whether you want to vaccinate or not. It's your opinion. But now, how is the district going to handle, which might very well happen with the Delta variant, those kids that get contact traced for the remote schooling for those 10 days that they're stuck home? How is that being handled? That's just my thought.
I mentioned that before. So what happened is the following. So what will happen is this, and Mr. Trump can speak to it as a curriculum person, but what happens is this, that the teachers will be providing what work needs to be done for each one of the students. That's a part of their contractual obligation. We are looking at doing tutoring during the course of the school day for them, kind of like check in to see how the work is going. And after hours, have our teachers who have the right of first refusal to then work with the kids with regards to the work that they need to keep up on. Our goal is to make sure when they come back, remember, right now, the guidance is 10 days, but you have 2 weekends on the end of it, so it may be 8 days. Our goal is to get them to where they need to be, so when they come back, they're not lagging behind. We'll provide, again, both asynchronous time for them to do some of that work, check in with somebody during the course of the school day, and then at the end of the day, work with the specific teacher to work with.
They won't be remotely involved.
Not the whole time, no.
They won't be seeing their classroom.
No. No.
I'd like to ask a question, Ms. Farrow. You said that you have to follow the guidelines. You said we have to follow the guidelines. What happens if we don't follow the guidelines? Maybe that's what they need to hear in Albany, that we're not going with the guidelines. I mean, if you listen to what that disaster mayor in New York City said, which is very insulting, he says you have to get people to follow with sticks and carrots. I'm sorry, but I'm not a jackass. I don't need to be led with sticks and carrots. All right? I mean, so what if we don't follow the guidelines? What happens?
Yeah, I spoke about this, I think 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry. Here's what winds up happening, and I mentioned this before. And we've had those conversations with our insurance carriers, with legal, as well as our physicians. And they're clear about the following, right? And I know about the word recommendation. I know every superintendent's got what that means and what should or shouldn't happen. But the American Association of Pediatrics, our insurance company is clear. based on CDC, American Association of Pediatrics, your local physician, the state guidelines, if you arbitrarily don't go with what those recommendations are, allegedly by those experts, and God forbid a child or a teacher gets severely sick and God forbid dies, you can be in a very, very difficult situation as a school district and then ultimately, a community if we get then sued for multi-millions of dollars because we did not follow what those recommendations are. So I go back to what I'm saying to you, we go back. That's why it's so important, as Trustee McCracken was saying, and a couple of people that got up there, that's why it's important for the elected officials, because those are the ones who can say, hey, listen, you got to give these poor schools some more guidance and get that matrix as to where we can say, we can now make it optional moving forward. Because to your point, that's the honesty. We've looked into it. Believe me, and Ms. Cloesi will tell you, we're trying to explore every option, and that's part of it.
Just follow Florida. Florida has a successful school district.
And Mrs. Messina, but if you look at, and I'm not going to get involved into politics because that's not, I can't.
This is a red state.
I know, but let me.
We have a problem politically.
But Mrs. Messina, let me explain what's going on though in some of these areas. You have schools, and I think one of the most important things is you want schools open. You have a lot of schools in Florida now, in Mississippi, in South Carolina, that are on remote instruction because the kids are getting the virus, whether we like it or not.
That's not true. That's not true.
But just stay with me. You mentioned the point of the matter, and listen, we're not in a red state. That's the reality. We're not in a red state. We are in a state that has a certain thought and philosophy, okay, whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm not disagreeing with some of what you're saying. As that gentleman mentioned, that's why we're in the situation that we're in. That's why we're in the situation.
Political, not science. So we are talking about politics, not science. We are not in red state.
No, my comment was the following, is that you have to understand, that when these elected officials make determinations, right? It's the reality of the matter is, it's nice to have checks and balances. Sometimes there's not checks and balances that we don't have any control over. So that's the reality of the matter. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what the comment is about it, but I'm letting you know that it's not just that easy to say, well, don't have masks, then things will be okay. There are some concerns and there are some things that are happening in some of these areas because it's the Delta variant that seems to be...
They're not testing for it. I went to so many labs because my mom had to have surgery. I had to get COVID tested to go with her to the pre-op. I had to have a procedure done just a few days ago. I had to get COVID tested before. I asked, are you testing for the Delta variant? Is there any test? She goes, no. It's only COVID positive or negative. This is by hospitals. This is by labs. It is COVID positive or negative. We common sense. I mean, we have to wake up. I mean, this is ridiculous of how the media is just feeding us all of this nonsense already. You go in and ask. The next time you get a COVID test, say, can I see my results if I have the Delta variant? Ask them for it. They're going to tell you, oh no, it's only going to be if COVID is detectable or non-detectable. That's all it is. I can show it to you. I can show you my 2 results in the past 2 weeks that will say non-detectable, COVID, whatever, SARS, whatever the heck they call it. No Delta. No variant is tested. BS.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
It's BS. I mean, you gotta wake up. I mean, people are just, like, little sheep.